This is the Tech Phantom, and welcome to episode 9 of this Dark Souls walkthrough. In this walkthrough, we are accompanying Conan in his travels through the land of Lordran. Conan has finally sharpened his claymore to its ultimate edge. He has forged it, he has sharpened it, and the weapon is at its most powerful state. Conan has also managed to regain about half of his powers. His constitution and his endurance have improved, and he has gained all of his strength. But he realizes that his skill in wielding the weapon and his dexterity with the claymore have been lost, and he needs to regain those skills. He has a very strong weapon now, and with his mighty muscles and powerful arms, he can chop off limbs of enemies and creatures, but he doesn't have the fine skills that he needs in order to take on sword masters. He will be careful when facing those, and he will need to work to regain those sword master skills. On his travels to Darkroot Garden and Darkroot Basin, Conan fights the prowling demon. This is a demon made out of pure carbon, out of pure iron ore, out of pure titanite. These demons are not the source of titanite. Rather, these demons sprung up from giant titanite chunks themselves, titanite slabs themselves. In this magical land, even iron ore, even titanite, has a spirit. And when that spirit is affected by whatever evil force Tulsa Doom, Lord Win, has released in this land that that corrupts everything, that when that spirit corrupted the titanite slabs, the prowling demons sprung up from the slabs and became very difficult, very challenging foes and monsters. They're incredibly strong and powerful, and even on one leg can do jump-in attacks. And they prey on the travelers that have come through this land. It was now time to pay a visit to the Black Knight. At the beginning, Conan had avoided this Black Knight. The edge on his claymore was not sharp enough to cut through the scales and the armor of the Black Knight. And he didn't have the strength to knock back the knight's shield or to be able to withstand a hit from the halberd. But things are different now. The tables have turned, Black Knight. With the fully sharpened weapon and with all of his strength back, the Black Knight was nearly a challenge for Conan. He wanted to explore the basin. He had heard stories about multi-headed serpents. He didn't like serpents, so it was his duty to rid this land of the serpents. He had also heard stories of golems, crystal golems. And sure enough, as he proceeded forward, he saw many crystal golems off in the distance. These creatures were quite strong, but they were also brittle and they shattered into thousands of pieces when killed. Conan also found the door to a tower. Inside he saw a knight with incredibly strong and heavy armor. This was Hobble the Rock. Obviously he was hollowed because he attacked Conan immediately. Hobble was no match for Conan. Hobble owned a special ring. His ring allowed him to move about in relative ease in spite of the incredibly heavy armor that he wore and the incredibly heavy weapon that he wielded. Conan took the ring. It might come in useful in his adventures throughout the land. He returned to the area where the golems were, and he was immediately attacked by water projectiles from a gigantic hydra. The hydra attempted to pick off Conan as he battled the golems. But the projectiles of the hydra were indiscriminate, and they can hit the golems, but they can also hit Conan as well. At first Conan thought that the golems were related or were protecting the hydra, but that wasn't the case. They simply happened to be put here by another source of evil, maybe a henchman of Tulsa Doom of Lordran. He recognized the lake where the hydra was stationed was marshy and swampy. He swapped out to the rusted iron ring, which will allow him to move quickly through watery and marshy and swampy areas. The hydra started to attack. The hydra's aim was not very good. It shot out its head in multiple directions, hoping to strike Conan. It also spit water projectiles of incredible strength. But again, these were not very accurate, and most of them tended to hit Conan. Conan found a spot that appeared to be relatively safe from the projectiles and from the head thrusts of the hydra. There was only one way to take on this enemy, and that was one head at a time, and he proceeded to do that. His claymore cut through the heads like butter, like a hot knife through butter. He chopped up the heads one at a time. He waited until the hydra thrust with its head, dodged the attack, and immediately chopped the head off. Soon there was only one head left, and the hydra had one last trick. Conan noticed that there was a partially hidden drop-off in the lake. It was very easy to fall off to your death. The hydra attempted to trick Conan into falling by thrusting its head near the edge, spraying water about to hide the path forward, and hoping that in the struggle, in the battle, Conan would lose its balance and fall off. So this was no stupid beast, but it was It had a little bit of intelligence and it had a little bit of a strategy. Conan proceeded forward and found a cave. Inside of the cave was a very large crystal golem. He was stronger than the smaller golems he had seen, and Conan was surprised that there was a magical creature inside of the golem.
Most gracious, I am deeply obliged. I am Dusk of Ulasil. I cometh from an age long before thine. I cannot stay here for long. So, before I disappear, allow me to ask one thing. My home, Ulasil, is the home of ancient sorceries. My hope is to pass this profound knowledge to thee, with thine approval. Would this be of assistance to thee? My heartfelt thanks. I am pleased beyond words. Then I shout, engrave my signature. If thou art in need, pray summon me from my signature. Seems that my time is done. May the great flames guide thee.
Inside of the golem, the spirit of a woman from long ago, from long past, was trapped. She told Conan that she could help him before she had to leave the land, in thanks for freeing her from captivity. Her name was Dusk of Elysiel. Ah, another damsel in distress. I love to help damsels in distress. And it was true. Conan went back to Darkwood Basin and he found the summon sign for Dusk of Elysiel. He summoned her spirit and decided to talk to her. She was a gentle creature,
It is an honor to see
and in spite of the fact
I shall follow thy wish.
that she was from a land of magicians, she was quite generous.
If thou art in need,
Unlike the wizards of Lordran,
I wish to be of assistance. May the flames guide thee.
Dusk was willing to teach her magic openly. Conan talked to her and bowed to her using an old proper bow. Relevant to what was used in Dusk's time. He continued to explore this area. This area reminded him of the forest of his lands, where his father had taken him when he was little to eat blueberries. It was lush and green, and the sounds of the waterfall cascading down and spraying water everywhere were very melodic. After climbing an incredibly long ladder, Conan looted some additional items. He found another shorter ladder. The first ladder had been very difficult to climb. Many had fallen off of that ladder since they did not have the endurance of Conan. But Conan had been able to climb the tall ladder very quickly. The second shorter ladder was no different. He found an open area, and his senses immediately warned him of something. Chrome, I thank you. He thanked Chrome that he had been born a barbarian with a sixth sense for danger. Before rushing into the open area, he had sensed danger. Sure enough, a great feline had attacked him. There were two other felines off in the distance. They were incredibly powerful and incredibly strong. They approached slowly, but as soon as they spotted their victim, they rushed forward, coiling their bodies into giant balls. They closed the distance incredibly quickly. They tried to stun and knock back their prey, and then they would kill them and eat them with their powerful jaws. However, the felines were no match for the claymore and Conan's renewed strength. He felt like he had done a service to other travelers of this area now that he had cleared the great felines and he had dispatched of them. He saw a very, very large door off in the distance past the bridge. Curious. He decided to proceed. Once again, he sensed danger, but he also sensed fascination. The great muscles in Conan's body swelled with anticipation of something. He didn't know what. He saw a grave with a gigantic sword, exquisitely carved, very powerful. It was too big for even Conan to wield it. All his senses were tingling as he approached the sword. Conan touched the sword, and a wolf immediately appeared. The Wizard of the Mountains had warned him about the great grey wolf Sith. The wolf immediately pulled out the sword from the grave and proceeded to attack Conan with it. Incredible, Conan thought. He had never seen any kind of a beast wielding a sword. And this wolf was actually skilled at its use, using quick combinations and different types of attacks. The wolf was obviously guarding the grave, probably of its master. Conan did not know why the wolf attacked. He had to defend himself. This wolf was incredibly dangerous. This was a battle to the death, and a worthy competition of two skilled swordsmen, even though one of them was a beast. Conan was close to death many times during the struggle. Neither of the two gave an inch, and neither of the two fought with the shield. But finally, Conan triumphed and killed the wolf. He found the ring of the Covenant of Artorias. The Covenant inscription etched along the inside. He wondered what it was for. He continued to search this area. The trees grew tall and majestic, just like the trees in the forests of the Black Isle. He pushed forward and saw some ruins off in the distance. Passing through the ruins, he saw a white great feline.
Is it not so that thou art new? Thou fared well to find me. But cometh thee not for the grave of Sir Artorius? My advice true. Forget this. The legend of Artorius art none but a fabrication. Traversing the dark. 'Tis but a fairy tale. Have thine own respect. Go not yonder knocking for nothing, I say.
The great feline.
A result most heathenish and gross. Then there is nothing more to say about this tedious reckoning. Begone from here, pernicious caitiff.
Cleared the situation a bit for Conan. Apparently, the grave was that of Artorias the Abyss Walker.
What a fool
The
we
ring
have.
that he had looted
What a
from
wretched
the
fool
great
we have.
Grey Wolf had something to do with the ability to walk or traverse through the darkness or through the abyss. The great feline had tempted Conan to join her covenant and to prevent others from finding the secret of the Abyss Walker Artorias. She had disrespected Conan when Conan had refused. For that, she had paid for her life. Conan continued through the open area and fought a number of Covenanters, most likely belonging to the Great Feline's Covenant. He was very surprised when a magician with the small dagger was able to stun him, and he realized that he had not replaced the wolf ring, which increases poise. He quickly changed back to it. He was fighting enemies that were very strong here, some of them with armor, and he needed the poise. As he was musing about this, a thief snuck up behind him and almost stabbed him in the back. The thief's sounds were muffled, and he was also wearing some kind of a magical item or magical ring that made him almost invisible and allowed him to blend into the environments. There was also a knight, heavily armored, with an ultra great sword. The knight was quickly losing to Conan and decided to use Conan's own strategies by two-handed his weapon. That was a fatal mistake. Conan was a master of two-weapon fighting, and his attacks were much faster than the knight's. He moved forward and he found an archer, also wearing a ring. Before the archer had a chance to shoot arrows at Conan, Conan killed her. She was Ferris. Conan had heard about Ferris. Her skill with the bow was legendary and supposed to be on par with the gods. Conan left the forest. Initially, he had thought of the forest, and he had thought of them as something, as a fond remembrance from his youth of trips that his father had taken with him to the forest. But after being attacked by many enemies and many creatures, he realized that these forests were definitely more similar to the ones in the Black Isle, where he had been attacked by gray man apes, very similar in strength and ferocity to the great felines. It was time to return to the bonfire, and it was time to put all of the souls that he had looted into use. This had been a very, very good outing. He had defeated many foes. He had captured a large number of souls. He had cleansed the land of a couple of deadly enemies: the prowling demon and the great felines. In addition, he realized that he could go back to the forest and he could fight enemies there to regain his skill. He decided that he would return to the forest periodically as needed to advance his skills and regain his ability with the claymore and with the sword. On his way back to the firelink bonfire, he tested the sharpness of his sword on the armored hollows. Yes, indeed, Conan was becoming stronger and stronger. One hit of his claymore cut the hollows down, and a parry and repulse did an incredibly large amount of damage. He finally returned to reach Firelink Shrine and regained both his constitution, his vitality, but he also realized that he needed more dexterity, so he started working on his dexterity. He would need it on future travels through this dangerous land.